Hi, I'm Dan Shapiro, CEO and founder of GlowForge. I had the good fortune to have an engineering degree. It all started at this place where I took lots of engineering courses upstairs, which taught me how to use all of the amazing, cool, and awesome machines downstairs. And I lived like a troll in the basement after hours, working away at the CNC mills and lathes and making all sorts of crazy stuff. It was like it gave you this superpower that you could create things. And like any superhero, I wanted to try and use my powers for good and not for evil. So I thought about cool projects I could work on and ways I could try and make the world a better place. What I wound up doing was making laser shows, which was a lot of fun and turned out to be prescient for what I would ultimately wind up doing. And it also paid for burgers and books at college because I put laser shows on at parties, and that was my sort of after-school job while I was there. So as I approached graduation, I started thinking about what I wanted to do, and I knew I wanted to be an electrical engineer. In fact, I talked to one of my closest friends, and I said, if I go to work at a software company, just put me out of my misery. Don't let it happen. But shops are dark and dirty and grungy, and the hours add up, and software is so appealing and so easy, and there's so many jobs, and so I eventually turned to the dark side, software, and really the dark side, Microsoft. In fact, I went to work on Windows 98, what I like to think of as, one of the last good ones. And I had a great career in software for more than a decade. I worked at Microsoft, I worked at Real Networks, I worked at a startup called WildSeed, where we were building a Linux-based cell phone for the teenage market. And then I founded my own company Ontello, where we were doing cloud services for camera phones, back when we had camera phones and before we had cloud services. And I had a lot of fun in the startup world. I created a company called SparkBuy that was doing comparison shopping for consumer electronics, which I sold to Google. And after spending 2 years at Google, I took a deep breath and decided I really wanted to think about what I wanted to do next. Now, at this point in my life, I had an amazing pair of twins. There's 6 now in this picture, there are 4 at the time. And I thought about how I was going to spend this summer that I took off with them. And I had this really weird idea. I was going to invent a board game, although I'd never made a board game before, and I really didn't know anything about it. And I didn't know what the board game was going to be about, so I thought, what would 4-year-olds enjoy doing, and what would be exciting to them? I know, computer programming. That's something 4-year-olds will like, right? So the crazy idea was I was going to take Logo. Logo? You guys remember Logo? Yeah, exactly. Papper, this incredible early programming language where you actually program a turtle. Except Stephen Woz couldn't give us enough pixels for turtles, so it was a triangle. But in your imagination, it was a triangle with a hole in the middle. But in your imagination, it was a turtle. So I learned Logo in computer camp in 2nd grade. And so you gave the turtle commands. You'd say, go forward, turn right, pen up, pen down. And I thought, I wonder if this would work in paper. I wonder if I could make a game where instead of programming a computer by typing and letters, things that my kids didn't understand yet because they couldn't read, they could program with cards by laying down cards. And like an old-timey card reader, I would be the computer. I would read the card, and I would move the turtle around while they wrote the program. So this seemed like it might be worth something, but I had no design or anything skills to think of. So this was version 1 of Robot Turtles. I don't know if I've ever shown this publicly before. It consisted entirely of clip art and PowerPoint stock arrows and stars and things. And my power tools to go create this were a scissors and tape and a laminating machine. So it was very old school as I was going and doing this. And we invented the game together. I would print something out, and I'd cut out the pieces, and they'd put some cards down, and I'd make noises, and we'd have a lot of fun. And at one point, to give you an idea of how this worked, my daughter said, Daddy, I don't like the walls. And I said, oh, well, honey, what do you think we should do about them? And she looked at me and said, lasers. I love my daughter very much. So that was how lasers got added to the game of Robot Turtles. It went like this. We were basically co-inventing this game together. Now, around about this time, I'd been helping some friends of mine, Dean Putney, Alon Lee. They were working on different Kickstarter campaigns. And and thinking about putting different projects on board. There was a card game Alon was working on. It would take him a year to bring it to market. At the time, it was called Bomb Squad. It would ultimately be called Exploding Kittens. Dean was putting his great-grandfather's photo album on the internet for people to order and raised over $100,000 because his great-grandfather was a photographer in World War I, and it was amazing. And so I was talking to them, and we're brainstorming all these crazy ideas about how to go use crowdfunding, which was still really novel to us, and use this to go raise funds for something. And I got excited and a little jealous, and I thought, okay, I want to try this too. So since I had no artistic skills, and since hardware requires design, I had to go find somebody to draw the turtles. So I found this guy, Agus Prajogo, who's an amazing designer. I found him on Odesk. And every night for months, I was up till 3 in the morning on instant message with Agus, reviewing designs and sketches. And this is the guy who actually designed the entire game of Robot Turtles. Next, I had to go do sourcing. So I went through the exhausting process of Googling board game manufacturers and then calling the top 15 results that I found on Google. That's actually my sourcing process. But I had a secret weapon. The thing was, I had friends in hardware, and I had friends who'd made the jump from software, and I knew how incredibly brutal it could be. And so my slides are just magically rolling forward here. I knew how exciting, how difficult it could be to do sourcing. And so I wanted to figure out how to make this easy on myself. And what I did was, at design time, I figured out how to make the entire thing out of rectangles made out of paper and cardboard. There were no custom dies. There was no custom fabrication. This is all parts that you could go, that were ready to go at the factory. So I found this amazing manufacturer, Delano Services, who, if you're looking for a board game, I highly recommend. They've been around for a century, and they've been printing for that long. And because they were based in the US, I could actually fly out and go and see the lines and talk to the people. I actually, when the lines started, my wife had broken her ankle, so I couldn't fly out. I wanted to be there. But they were live streaming with an iPhone on the production line, so I could see as things started. So it was a really amazing partner to have as I was going into production with this. And it made the manufacturing far easier than it would have been if I'd had injection molded plastic characters or anything like that. And because this was a one-person job, I needed every bit of help I could get for this first hardware project. So then I had to decide how much to charge for the thing. This is really tricky. And after talking to a bunch of folks, I decided I wanted the lowest possible number that I wouldn't regret. So I had to assume that the thing was going to fund plus $1, and I was going to be totally committed to delivering all the turtles, but that I wouldn't have any more money than what I raised. So I thought about it, and I did all the numbers, and it would cost me $30,000 to order 1,000 copies, the minimum factory order. At $25,000, I'd be writing a $5,000 check for my degree in Kickstarterology, and I would have enough, I'd have 100 or 200 copies left over. So for every school auction from here to eternity, I would know exactly what I'd be donating. And I figured I'd be good. And that's what I was hoping for. I got myself 50-50 odds that I'd get the 25K that I was looking for. So it turned out a little differently. But the reason that it turned out differently, I think, is because I thought really hard about getting it started. The one thing I knew about from talking to people who've done this is that those first few hours are absolutely crucial to charting the course for the direction of a crowdfunding campaign. And I wanted to be sure off the right start. I'm not proud of what I did. Over the course of my life, I have emailed 3,003 people. And I know this because I put them all in a spreadsheet and then sent an email to each and every single one of them. The only time in my life I've done it, and I feel terrible about it, and 3 of them immediately replied and said, "Why are you spamming me, taking me off that list?" The other 3,000 did not complain. And in fact, people started pledging. And it was miraculous. I had absolutely no idea the resonance that this would hit. But in the first 5 hours, the campaign funded. In the first day, it raised $100,000. Over the course of the campaign, it became the most backed board game in Kickstarter history. It turned out that the stupid clip art that I banged together with my kids on the dining room table had filled some sort of void, some sort of need that the world had that I hadn't even realized existed. And when I put it out there for the world climbed on aboard for the ride. And so that month was a crazy whirlwind of letters some actual physical amazing letters, emails, notes, and magnificent, beautiful chaos as the world discovered this and said that they wanted to be a part of this thing that we were creating. So I quit my job. I was on leave of absence. I quit my job, couldn't say no to the turtles, decided to be a full-time turtle wrangler, at least for the time being, and set out to go and fulfill production. And here's what it turned out to be. 3 semi-truckloads, 36 tons of paper and cardboard to 13,000 people in 65 countries in one day. I took the spreadsheet, I uploaded it to Amazon, who's doing all my domestic fulfillment, used Fulfillrite for international, and got everything ready and double and triple and quadruple checked and had my wife look at it and check one more time because the last thing I wanted to do was accidentally sort alphabetically and have everything go to the wrong location. Took a deep breath and hit send. And almost every single one of them arrived in time, made it to people's homes in the US for Christmas shortly after to international destinations. And that was how Robot Turtles came to be. And from there, I had the incredible experience of working with the team at ThinkFun, who licensed the game, brought it into stores, and brought it around. And ultimately, in seeing it and my kids on the front page of the New York Times and in the stores at Target. Now, this all left me with a large new resident of my garage, a laser named Hugo. This was a superpower, this laser, this Hugo. Lasers make things, and they make them quickly and precisely at the push of a button. It was like I'd rediscovered the bug I'd been bitten by in college. So I thought about Hugo, and I thought about what I could do with this superpower that lived now in my garage, with hardwoods, with paper, with leather, with acrylic, with fabric, being able to engrave stone and glass and consumer electronics. What could this bring unto the world? And why was it that I had to have $11,000 to make this happen, and 770 pounds and all this room in my garage? And this software that was so utterly abominable, it veered between horrible and comic. And this process, before I could hit print and have 1 minute of magic, of hours and hours of tuning in power settings and dialing in configuration. It was like there was this beautiful core of magic surrounded by layers upon layers of horse manure. And I wanted to figure out how to get to the magic. I wanted a Star Trek replicator. You guys can see into the future. You know we're getting replicators. You know they're coming. I do too. Back in 1997, movies in 1997, people knew that we were going to be watching video on the internet. And so like idiots, they went and made companies to do videos on the internet. But it turns out that it's not about what the technology is that's coming. It's about the value. That's why this guy realized that it was better to have limitless selection, instant gratification, even if it came in your mailbox. A different technology, but the same value proposition. That was a better play than trying to get the technology right, like all his peers who started internet streaming video companies. So I looked at Hugo, and I thought, how can we get at this core of magic in the middle? How can we unlock the superpowers for everyone? So we wanted to build a GlowForge, a device that was less than $2,000, as precise as Hugo and mainstream lasers, that could cut 1/4-inch plywood and acrylic and leather and everything else, that would have a 12 by 20-inch bed big enough to make beautiful things, and that would have software that was utterly sublime and wonderful to use. But there are a few tricks we needed to use to do it. First, we had to do away with this. This is a motion controller. It's a component of every laser, and it costs $500. It's the thing that translates geometric shapes into pulses. Well, we decided that instead of running a proprietary motion controller, we could run this in the cloud. We'd use a supercomputer to go do the motion plan, compress it, and send it down to be decompressed at the last minute, just in time on the device, knocking 2 zeros off the price of this component. Instead of aligning things with a red dot, this here is our shop supervisor about to commit to engraving her iPhone, right? Big deal. You get it wrong, and best case, your logo's misaligned. Worst case, you cut a hole in your iPhone. And the way it's done traditionally is with this thing called a beam combiner, which joins a visible red laser beam into the invisible laser path. And the optics to do that cost $300. We use a camera in the lid. So on your iPhone or your laptop, you just look at the iPhone, you drag your image on top of it, and you hit go. By using these two principles, the cloud and smartphone parts wherever possible, we managed to get our BOM down to where we believe we can actually sell this thing at $2,000, and we'll be able to ship these at the end of the year. Now let me talk about your great-grandparents. 100 years ago, if you wanted something, you were as likely to make it yourself or ask your neighbor for it as you were to buy it from the store. Things were homemade. And because they were homemade, they were beautiful, and they lasted, and they were exactly what you wanted. We traded that for the cost and convenience of factories. Now, factories are great for bringing the price down and for putting things on store shelves, but I want homemade back. I don't want a factory on my desktop. That's like a McDonald's in my kitchen. I want to be able to make things with a push of a button out of real materials, the way I want them, customized to exactly the things I need, and that's what I'm excited about with GlowForge. I'm excited about reinventing what it means to be homemade, creating beautiful things straight from your imagination to products at the push of a button, and that's what we've come up with. I hope you're excited about this too. If you are, I ask that you might sneak over to glowforge.com and type in your name so we can tell you when it becomes available. And if you're really excited, send us a note at jobs@glowforge.com. But either way, I hope you share my excitement in reinventing what it means to be homemade. Thank you.